positive or negative? The very first board on the left-hand side, positive or negative? It's negative, right? It's quantity demanded is price. The relationship between the quantity demanded and price is positive or negative? Hello? Are you awake? It's positive or negative? It's negative, right? This is the quantity supplied and the price. What is the relationship between the quantity supplied and price? Positive or negative? It's positive, right? It's a negative minus a positive, so the whole term will be negative, okay? So this is actually this term with a negative sign. Is that true? Okay? So it is negative, indicating the change in price should be downward. Only when the price changes in this direction, downwardly, so that the gap can be erased and the equilibrium can be restored. Okay, so that we can have a new equilibrium. So the negative sign indicates the direction of the change in P, and the absolute value tells us the size of the change in P that can erase the gap caused by a change in A. Is that clear? Okay, I'll give you 1 minute to digest. You may discuss with your classmates. Think about this. Yeah.
就是我们一定要加绝对值算，还是直接可以，就是不要加绝对值直接算，因为加绝对值还要去考虑要不要加符号。
Actually, I just want to let you know about the size. So I add absolute value here. Without this, you need to go to the sign to understand the direction and the size at the same time. So either way. But I just want to tell you that they are actually perfectly the same thing. Okay? And you may see a negative sign here minus a positive, so it's a negative. This is positive. Okay? So either adding absolute values or you just interpret directly. Either way. Which one is negative? Law of demand. You know what is the law of demand? The law of demand means the relationship between price and quantity demanded is inverse. It's negative. So when P goes up, your quantity demanded must be lower, right? Must be decreasing. That is the reason. And this term is actually the slope of the curve, right? Actually, all right, this is a very good question. It's a good question here, but it's actually an advanced question. Supply, and now I have a change in A. So partial S, partial A. This is actually a function named P and A. Okay? So given different price, the change, the size of the change may be different. But we just assume it's a parallel shift. We just assume it is a parallel shift, which means this will not affected by P. Okay? So think about this. If we have a function of x and y, which is x squared, y squared, okay? Now, partial f, partial y equals 2x squared y, is that right? And this size will be affected by x. Okay? But if for example, x plus, so partial f, partial y would be 2y, right? It is not affected by x. So we assume it's an additive form. It's an additive form. So that the change, we just assume it to be a parallel shift. So this is a very good question. It's an advanced one. Does everyone understand what I'm talking about?
You mean that if the slope will change depending on the quarter of the x?
The what? Or x?
If the x will be the quarter or something else, the slope will change?
Yeah. So when the partial differentiation is not affected by x, so it depends on the functional form. Okay? So if it is not additive, it's a multiple one, then there will be an x here. So the size of this term will be affected by x. And it would be something like this. Okay? It is not parallel anymore. But we just, for the reason of simplicity, we just put it as a parallel shift. And just like it's an additive form. So the point here is not about the form. It's not about whether it is a parallel shift or not non-parallel shift. It's about when it shifts to the right, and at this point, given this P star, so this term at the level of P star will correspond to this one. Okay? And we'd like to know how much change in P and what is the direction, what's the direction and the size of the change in P. Can erase the gap perfectly. So by 1 unit change in P, the size we may erase will be the sum of these two parts. Okay? So we may just compute by how many units change in P, we may erase the gap perfectly, total. Is that clear? Any other question? So this is just an advanced question. Either you understand it or not, it will be fine. But this is an important thing. And I can guarantee you, I assure you, it must be shown on your midterm paper. That is what I'm talking about, the next step. All right, so case number 1, partial QS, partial A, we assume it is positive. So the change in the supply curve is to the left, to the right? Now let's think about the other way. Think about the other way. So is everyone happy with this? And I want to erase, because this equation you may have it on your slide here. So I just erase this. Now case number 2. If partial QS, partial A is negative, what would happen? Demand, supply, P, Q. Now, when A increases by 1 unit, the supply curve will move to the left. Is that right? And this is the initial equilibrium price. So, what about this term? Partial S, partial A would be this, corresponds to this. Because it's a partial differentiation in A, holding P constant. So you hold P constant to study the effect caused by the change in A. Okay? So this part would be partial S, partial A, and it's negative. This is what we assume. We just assume it is a negative one. So it is negative. And the size, of course, you need to add some absolute, so it would be positive. Okay. And now we want to know the size of the changing P. How can we just erase the gap? Now we have a over demand, the excess demand, over demand. So now the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied, because we have to decide by the new supply curve. So the quantity demanded exceeds quantity supplied. There is a shortage, right? So the gap, the size of the gap will be partial S, partial A, and how can we erase this? We make the price goes up by 1 unit, and the quantity demanded will decrease. Quantity demanded will decrease if there is a unit change in price. The quantity demanded this part will be the change. The quantity demanded, the change in quantity demanded caused by 1 unit change in P. Okay? And this part will be here. So I make it 1, and I make it 2. So this is the change in quantity supplied by a unit increase in P. So the quantity supplied, the size of the change in QS by 1 unit change in P. Is that clear? Okay? So all of them are positive size. Now the whole size, and the size erased by 1 unit in P would be this. So this would be the total size in P, right? The total size in P. Okay? The total size of change in P. And this, let's compare with the original one. So we don't have an absolute value here, and now we have an absolute value here. So should we put some minus sign on the numerator? Should we do that? It depends on, what do you think? Is it positive or negative? It's positive or negative? By assumption, case number 2, we assume it to be negative, right? So this is negative, so we need to give it a negative sign. Okay? And as usual, this is negative minus positive, so it's a negative. So we need to give them another negative sign here. Okay? And these two negative signs cancel each other. So the whole term will be positive, indicating the price change should be positive. The price should go up so that the gap can be erased. Is that clear? So you see the first case. The first case, when this term is positive, the whole term will be negative. Positive, negative always. So it's a negative term, and the price must go down so that the gap caused by the shift, the hour shift, can be erased. So the sign of the whole equation tells us the direction of the price. It should change in the direction to erase the gap. And case number 2, by the assumption, we make it negative. So negative, negative will be a positive. Then the price should go up so that the gap can be erased. And by how many units in price of change, in the change of price, can be the gap erased perfectly? It depends on these two terms. And on the numerator, it is the total gap. And by each month, just as I told you the example, by each month, from here is shorter. Okay? So you need to know how many units can be short. How many units to be shorted by 1 unit change in P. So you know it's like this is the size. So the result, the ratio, will be the exactly change in P. Okay? So the equation here tells us 2 things. The sign, positive or negative. When it is positive, it tells us the price should go up. When it is negative, it tells us the price should go down. And the ratio here tells us what? How many units of the change in price should it be so that the gap can be perfectly erased. Okay? Let's take a 14-minute break. Now it's 9:51, so let's come back to the classroom 10, 5.